If you've been on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, or Instagram recently, I'm sure you've came across some podcasts that have been clipped down to short form, very intriguing content that is just everywhere on social media nowadays. And although there might be a lot of annoying takes and just some attention grabbers out there, it's probably one of the best ways to market your business or your profession in 2023. Stick around for the entire video where I show you how to start your own podcast, all the tools you're gonna need, and how you can do it for practically no money. First things first, why are podcasts coming back again? I think we all remember 2016, 2017, podcasts were the big upcoming thing. At that time, everybody thought, nope, way too oversaturated. What's the point of entering the podcast market? There's no room for me. How can I make an impact in here? Let's fast forward 2020, this crazy global thing happened and everybody was locked in their houses, and podcasts came back again, and they came back in full force. All of these companies, all of these small creators who were focusing on being out in public and being out and about communicating and interacting with other influencers weren't able to do that anymore. So they all switched to podcasts. Now, the reason why so many people jumped on the podcast wagon is because they realized that it's so multi-purpose. You could take a 1-hour podcast and clip that down into 5 or 6 different short sections, little 5-minute clips, and you could also clip it down to probably about 10 to 20 different little 30-second shorts, TikToks, so you can take that one piece of content and turn it into literally like 50 pieces of content. Imagine taking that one idea where you thought, okay, this is just gonna be a boring 1-hour podcast, and turn it into 2 different YouTube channels, 2 different Spotify accounts, an Instagram, a TikTok, and this whole community around just diversifying how you output your content. If you want me to make a video on how you can take that one piece of content and turn it into at least 20 different pieces of content, let me know and I'll do that in a separate video. But this video today is strictly just to tell you how you can get started and how a small business, a large business, or a single creator can do the same that everybody else is. The first thing you want to do is figure out what kind of information you're sharing on this podcast. Is it just a conversation between 2 cool people? Is it a business thing where you're trying to tell people how you could be better at certain businesses? Or is it an educational thing? Is it to do with health? Is it to do with how to spruce up things around the house? Whatever it may be, figure out what direction you want to take it first. Before you buy any gear, you got to figure out how you're hosting this podcast. Is this in person where you're going to need multiple mics and multiple camera angles? Are you just going to host it over something like Zoom or some kind of podcast host online where they're going to be somewhere else and have their own setup? What kind of gear and what kind of budget do you have to start this podcast? What is your need for this equipment? Everybody can buy a $500 mic, a $2,000 camera, and make it look really presentable, but do you really need that? Or are you able to get away with just filming on your phone, maybe an external mic hooked up to a laptop somewhere? Where do you actually fall? So I'm going to give you 3 different budget points for setting up your podcast. The first option is the super budget podcast option, and it's going to be as straightforward as this. You just need a phone, even an iPod. That's all you need. It has a microphone, it has a camera, has an internet connection. You can literally just film 1 take podcast on your phone and upload it to Spotify, upload it to Apple Podcasts, and boom, there, you're done. You probably don't even have to spend any money. The second option I would consider more as a beginner option. And so that's where you're gonna maybe get an external mic like this. You're gonna spend anywhere from $60 to $150, but you're gonna get really good sound and audio, and maybe get a light from Amazon for like $20, and you can still film off your phone, and you're spending maybe $200 to set everything up, and it's gonna pretty much look as good as whatever this looks like right now, and it's gonna sound as good as this. This mic right here is the HyperX Quadcast compressor mic. I believe there's 2 different Quadcast mics. You can pick one of these guys up for like $120, $130 Canadian, probably get it for under $100 American. You'd also probably go on Facebook Marketplace and get it used for like $50. For me personally, I love this mic. It has a stand, it has a little bit of shock absorption, so when I hit this table, it's not as bad as it's actually going to be if it was just sitting on the table. But that's my advice on equipment for the beginner level. You know, film off your iPhone, get a nice external mic so your voice sounds nice and crispy, and then maybe a $20 light as well, and you can get so much done. Option number 3 is the more professional side of things. This is where you're going to get a dedicated 4K camera like I have right now. This is maybe you're going to get 2 or 3 different mics if you have an audience around you. If you have a big round table, you're going to need multiple mics. That itself is just going to be super expensive. For this professional setup, you're going to be at least $1,000 for 1 camera. Maybe if you want 2 or 3, it's going to be a few thousand. You're probably going to be another $1,000 on mics if you're going to get 2 or 3. This is more if you have a business plan and you already know what you're doing, you already know why you want to start this podcast, and which reason you're probably not listening to me anyways. But I just wanted to mention that for all the people that think that they need all of this gear to start, this whole setup here was really not that extreme. And you can do all of this too, like I have on this camera right here, just straight off of the iPhone. And although it doesn't look as great as this dedicated 4K camera, it's all about the audio, and as long as the audio sounds good, you're probably okay. If there's one piece of equipment that you have to buy, just buy a microphone. Trust me, if you're doing a podcast, this is the most important thing. For a majority of it, you don't even need really, really good video, but you really want good audio. So once you figure out your direction of your podcast, how you're gonna host your podcast, and the gear you're gonna use for your podcast, you have to figure out, how the heck do I upload this podcast? Well, as I was planning and filming this video, Anchor.com switched over to podcasts for Spotify. Everything I'm about to say qualifies for podcasts for Spotify. It's still free, still offers amazing analytics, and actually offers a few more features that they didn't offer before. So same thing, don't worry. And it is the easiest, most efficient way to upload your podcast to the internet. The only thing that takes time is at the beginning stage where you're getting verified to actually post your content. So once you get verified, your podcasts get uploaded within the hour, and it's really efficient. I highly recommend you do this. They'll upload your podcast automatically to Spotify, Google Play, places like that. You'll have to add in the Apple Podcast option, but for me, it was free. It was really easy to do. It just takes a little bit more time. They do a great job at showing analytics, how many people have been visiting, where they're from. It's actually a really great platform. If you've never heard of it before, I'll leave a referral code for it somewhere down in the description. Go check it out. It makes uploading a podcast as easy as a 30-second task, and I recommend that you try it out as well. So you have your direction, you have your hosting ability, you have your gear, and you are able to upload your podcast. What do you do next? Well, the biggest tip that I can give if you want to have some longevity to your podcast is you got to plan it out. People think, yeah, it's just easy to get in front of a camera and talk about interesting and important things for 20 minutes to an hour, but it's actually not that easy. On all the podcasts that I've done, I've always written up some sort of a little script or just questions that I'm going to be asking them so they can think a day or two beforehand, how am I going to answer this question? I know some people are probably super comfortable talking to the camera, but I know a lot of people aren't. So although you might have a really impressive individual who has amazing stories, you have to give them time to be able to think about how they can communicate that story to other people. So maybe sending off some questions beforehand that you want to ask them, figuring out some no-go zones that you have to stick away from would mean a lot to whoever you're talking to in your podcast. If you have any questions about how I edit my podcast, how you can use Anchor in the most efficient way possible, or just any other tips and tricks, leave them down in the comments below. I'm happy to go into this in greater detail, although I think you could probably make a whole podcast about starting a podcast. I just wanted to take this quick 5 or 10 minutes to tell you that it's really easy. You can get it started whenever, and there's no time like now. People back in 2016 that said it was going to die. People in 2020 that said it was going to die. It's 2023, and it's popular as ever. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Thank you to everybody, and have a great rest of the day.